Well, I want to welcome everyone. I'm just so delighted that you've tuned in for Hawthorn University's All About Alumni. Since we have a number of new people with us today, I want to share a little bit about our All About Alumni. It's a platform that showcases Hawthorn graduates will share their post-grad activities and their accomplishments. The many ways that they're using their Hawthorn education in their practices is really nothing short of amazing. We have a variety of nationally accredited degree and certificate programs at Hawthorn. Some are for those that are pursuing a clinical track with the goal of working directly with clients. And we have other programs that are dedicated to people that are seeking to primarily educate, such as write books, develop courses, workshops, programs, public speaking. And then there's other programs for those who simply want to learn valuable, credible information in a conducive environment. The success of our students is a testament to Hawthorn's mission and principles to provide quality, holistic health and nutrition education. That's why we all love to learn more at Hawthorn. I'm your host, Paula Bartholomew. I'm one of the founders of Hawthorn, and it's truly such a privilege for me to speak with and feature our graduates. So let's get started. Today we get to feature Laura Kopec. She's a graduate from our Master of Science in Health and Nutrition Education program. And Laura will share her long and sometimes challenging journey to find herself professionally as she discusses how she created a thriving practice for herself after graduating in 2013, and how her education in Hawthorn University and the MHNE program, combined with her passion and resiliency, really allowed her to find confidence and put herself out there as an educator and an expert in the field. Laura runs a private consulting practice based in North Dallas area, where she sees clients by telemed and by phone. And while I have the pleasure of interviewing Laura, those of you attending live also have the opportunity to ask her questions directly. So please don't hold back. Simply post a question or a comment to the question panel. And we're recording this, and it'll be posted to our website in just a few days. You'll find it under archived webinars. All right, welcome, Laura. I'm really excited to be here together.
Thank you, Paula. I'm really happy to be here.
All right, great. So it's my pleasure to introduce you and have you start sharing your post-grad experiences. So let me share a little bit more about Laura. As we said, she's a graduate of our Master of Science in Health and Nutrition Education program, and she holds a Master of Arts from the University of Arizona, a certificate in nutrition consulting, and a doctorate in traditional naturopathy. She has written and self-published 3 books: Let's Get Real About Eating, A Practical Guide to Nutrition and Health; My Kid's a Picky Eater, 12 Secrets to Changing Your Child's Eating Habits; and The Linked Diet, Connecting Mindset, Digestive Health, and Weight Loss for Your Best Self. Laura is a public speaker. She runs her own private consulting practice, Kopec Wellness LLC, with a strong focus on functional genetics and strategic wellness. And she's added podcasts to her repertoire. Her podcast is Health Matters with Laura Kopec. That can be found on Anchor, Google Products, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, where she covers a variety of subject matters and interviews a variety of individuals to help you take charge of your own health. Laura is dedicated to education, health, and wellness by inspiring change and transformation in the lives of women and children everywhere. And she does all this as a single mom of 3 children. It's very impressive so far, and we haven't even heard from you yet, Laura. So I'm really pleased that everybody has joined us to hear Laura's story. Laura, are you willing to share it? You ready?
I am. Again, thank you, Paula, for having me. Thank you, all of the listeners that are here now live and those that will be listening to future recordings. And I am ready.
All right. Well, let's get started with how you got interested in holistic health and nutrition.
Absolutely. And this is actually my 3rd major change in a career, and hopefully this will be the long-lasting one. I actually started my professional journey in theater arts. That is where I wound up with my first bachelor's degree, and actually had a career in theater both on stage and backstage and off stage for over a decade. Then I found myself in education as a teacher in high school and in college, and stayed there for a number of years. Throughout, I always had a personal passion and interest in holistic health. It started for myself with a personal journey beginning around age 19, and it continued underneath And so at some point, I developed my own skincare line, my own product line of natural products. And it was from there that I actually wound up moving more into the functional health and educating people, because more and more of my customers that were using my skincare products started asking questions about what else they could do for their skin. And of course, there's a huge connection between the skin and the gut. And so I wound up answering a lot of questions about diet and nutrition, and thought, wow, this is really an important part of skincare. And so I decided it'd be really important to become certified in that. And that was the entrance into that direction for myself professionally. I had a number of ups and downs doing this professionally. I at first was building my private practice after I received my certificate in nutritional counseling. I was working for an integrated pediatrician. I was hired by this pediatrician who wanted to really develop her practice in a holistic manner. And so in doing that, I was building my reputation in the holistic community. I was also in a product refinement of the skincare line, and I had been working really hard to move the skincare line from an online store into retail. And so I really focused on a relationship with Whole Foods Market, and eventually wound up on their shelf. And that was a pretty huge accomplishment. It took years of communication and emails and then phone calls, and even years of making sure that I was compliant for the product regulations that they had about having product on their shelves. And so both of those things took up a lot of my time. Eventually, we were in 5 stores in the Texas area, and Whole Foods began talking about a line expansion, which means as a vendor and a manufacturer, you're going to put more products on their shelves. And then in doing that, we were also talking about expanding into more stores. So going from Texas and local to the Southwest region. And that was a really exciting journey for me. It milestone to move your products from your online store and small retail into larger. Customers were very happy with results. Whole Foods was very excited about the product line, but I found that I was working with a big corporation. Whole Foods Market is a huge business. It's a huge corporation, and it wasn't as warm and friendly as an experience as I had hoped. There were demands placed on me that I met, but then they weren't reciprocated, and so it just felt really bumpy. And in the meantime, I'm developing a really caring practice, and I'm working with individuals, and that had a lot of fulfillment to it. But all of a sudden, there was kind of this storm happening, and the pediatrician wanted to take her business in a different direction. So we decided to part ways, and I decided after a lot of heartfelt searching that I wanted to be removed from the corporate world. So I discontinued my relationship with Whole Foods and pulled the products off the shelf.
It's such a beautiful label. It's such a beautiful concept here, and the success that you gained in the outreach, people's lives that you touched with this. It's really beautiful. I mean, we could do a whole segment just on product development and everything in this. It's so valuable. So maybe there'll be some good questions about this in the end. Are you still making these products?
I have discontinued making the products as a result of the natural product market expanding. So when I first made the products, there was really nothing like it, nothing that was purely 100% now, a great deal of shelf stability. So, you know, as many things, even including my books, it started with something that I thought was needed, that was missing, and then developed it, and then found that there was a greater need in the general public. So there's more products out there, which is great. But my business, kind of making, again, those hard decisions, which we'll get into in my presentation, is looking at where I was needed most. So, yeah.
Right. Well, it seems like you felt like you were at a business low. Is that right? So
Yes.
let's talk about what happened next. It's a good next
Yeah.
slide.
I really felt like this was a path that I was going to continue on for years. I went from a small practice into a doctor's office. I went from being on my own internet store to on the shelf, and I really felt like that was just going to continue to advance me forward. But when those two major shifts happened on both sides of my business, the product and the services, I just really had to rethink what I was doing. And I think, when you come into a professional low, you really have to understand your strengths and weaknesses, because it's really easy to just go, oh, this is not working, and, just kind of fold up shop. So I went to a period of self-reflection and decided that I really needed to be open to growth and change. I had been here before with a major shift in my professional journey. I had been here personally before as well. So I relied on my sense of resiliency, my adaptability. I'm a big seeker of truth, knowledge, answers. I was looking for answers in the new direction that I was being pointed in. And a lot of those decisions come down to looking at the data. There's the warm and fuzzy and empathetic side of us being in healthcare, especially alternative healthcare. A lot of us had a lot of empathy, but then there's the business side of what we do. And that's really difficult for a lot of us. It doesn't come naturally. But looking at the data is a really important strategic decision that you make as a business person. And then it takes being brave, I think, to, once you look at the data, really deciding where to cut your losses. I could have lingered in Whole Foods Market and really decided that was something I was willing to work at, but I really decided that it was really important to cut my losses and really move towards where my strengths were, not just showing me in the way that I was moving through my business, but in the way that the numbers were presenting themselves as well. So that's when I decided I was going to consider my first book.
Wow. That's quite the journey. Although this is good, your first book, and now you're talking about Hawthorn. So you built a practice, you started on your first book. So why did you decide to roll on Hawthorn?
Yeah, once I decided that I wanted to actually write and bring more of expertise and my expertise to the general public and to my practice, I needed more education. I knew that the certificate I had received didn't feel like it was enough. And so I began looking to pursue a second master's. And I needed it to have certain things. I needed it to be distance learning. At that point, I had already had my third child. I had already moved to Texas to pursue the change in my career from theater to education. So I made a major move with my family. I wasn't able to relocate. I needed it to be affordable. I was coming off the heels of that first master's, and I really wanted it to have dense curriculum. I really wanted it to be similar to my first master's was with a Research One institution, the University of Arizona. So I really wanted that that eliteness to the curriculum. And I was definitely interested in more of what we call now functional medicine, functional health. I had gotten a taste of this at the pediatrician's office. She had asked me to be the interpreter or the educator, if you will, on some of the functional labs she was doing. And that really inspired me to move and look at that direction more specifically.
Well, would you talk a little bit more about your Hawthorn experience then and how it supported your career?
Absolutely. I definitely felt like the expectations I had about my experience with Hawthorn were met. I felt that Hawthorn really lived up to the things that it promised. It really delivered on this. So I came away with a real wealth of knowledge and really appreciated the amount and the depth of knowledge that I was being exposed to. I was really happy with the community of other students. You know, working on campus for a master's degree, you're really involved with other students there. And there really was a sense of community with Hawthorn. I thought that there was a really incredible job of being able to present that kind of community and interact with other students and faculty. I really felt supported by the faculty there. And so that support, again, you know, it can seem a little bit like you might not get that if you're not on campus, but it was so present and so available to me. And with all of that, there still was a sense of discipline to the education and to the coursework and the experience. And I functioned better in that kind of environment. And so I really appreciated it being there. And it offered a level of professionalism to the entire experience. And, you know, I'm really fortunate in a way that I have these two masters to do this comparison, and really found that they were very, very similar. And in fact, in some cases, you know, my experience with the distance learning was superior because of the flexibility where I could spend more time looking at or diving into something instead of compartmentalizing it during a particular time where I was on campus. So, you know, my takeaway was the Master of Science in Health and Nutrition Education, and it really gave me a boost in confidence. It gave me a boost in knowledge, and definitely a boost in my reputation.
Wow, thank you, Laura. It was so well described, and is really what our intention is. You know, particularly around the depth of the curriculum, it matters so much. The work that we do in the field demands, it requires this level of depth of curriculum, and the supportive community is also rich here at Hawthorn, both from faculty and other student interactions, and it's a valuable component of it. I know that you still have lasting relationships as a consequence of it. So, well, here you are with a master's earned from Hawthorn. Congratulations. Your book is published. Another congratulations. So what came next?
Yeah, I really felt like the tides were turning here. You know, holding that published book in your hands is an incredible accomplishment. It feels very similar to having that diploma that you put up on your wall. Quite a sense of accomplishment. And so really that, you know, kind of becomes part of the way you present yourself. You know, but being self-published, I have to say, you really get to decide on the quality of the product you're going to put out there. You decide on the budget that you're going to spend in order to get that quality product. So I made a decision that because I wanted this to say something about me professionally, that I was going to put out a really high quality product. So I paid for editing services. I paid for designers with the layout, with the artwork. And then I decided to hire a publicist that helped me not just be available to the catalog at Barnes & Noble, but actually stock me on the shelf there. And so once I was on the shelf at Barnes & Noble, she arranged with Barnes & Noble to do a book launch, and we had a reading. And this was an incredibly exciting moment for me professionally. And, you know, publishing a book, for me, it was about the credibility. You know, there is actually not a lot of money in selling books. At least there, you know, isn't for me at this time. It really was about, again, advancing myself as an educator. And then what I did is I moved more into public speaking. So I took myself as a published writer and some of the publicity that I had done, and then developed classes where I was going into clinics and I was doing a series of classes. I would speak at a large gathering or a small gathering. So I had moms groups calling to have me be their, you know, their featured speaker, or I had retreats, or, you know, companies bringing me in. So I was doing both small and large gatherings. And one of the things that I found out statistically is that only about 10% of experts actually do public speaking, are willing to get up and talk about what is going on in the information that they're presenting or that they're an expert in. And then only even a small portion of those people that are willing to public speak do it really well. So this was a real great opportunity for me to, I felt really comfortable with my background in theater and education and being in front of people. And so, if I could bring something that much more to the table, then I was really happy to do that and felt a lot of satisfaction in doing that. And then found that the more I presented valuable information, the more my practice grew. So yeah, definitely, I felt like the tides were turning, and this was going to be a fresh new direction for my professional journey.
I love it. And it really speaks to having a book in hand, having a published book as the opportunities that arise from that. So many speaking opportunities because of a published book opens so many doors. And, just the experience that you had through this thing is just tremendous. I love it. So what happens then?
Yeah.
What happens?
Suddenly I was faced with a personal crisis. I was faced with divorce and becoming the sole provider for myself and my children. And this was very hard for me to face. I had thought that I had gone through this major transformation professionally, but now I was faced with a real personal low. And what I found that sometimes life gives you a challenge and it can seem crushing at the time, but it really is an opportunity, again, to dig deep within yourself, find out what you're made out of, and find out what you're willing to do. And so for me, it was a real critical need to prioritize. And it was about prioritizing professionally and personally. And I decided to kind of work my identity as a practitioner so that it really reflected where I had come from personally and where I was going personally. And really, again, asserting myself that, we needed to look at our health in a multifaceted way and to come at it with a sense of discipline, but moderation and balance. So I began really honing in on my identity as a practitioner.
The resilience that you're exhibiting through this so far is just wonderful to see and to hear, rising up from such challenges, several of them. So after all of this, has it affected, do you feel like you have a strong identity? Does that influence the way you promote yourself now?
Absolutely. I have gone on to write 2 other books, and I really see myself as taking bits and pieces of the different chapters in my life and folding them and webbing them all together. So I still feel like I'm in the arts, but now I'm in the healing arts. I still feel like I'm in education, but now I educate people on how to take charge of their health. But also with the personal challenges I went through, I really feel like I help people not only take charge of their health, but learn how to integrate what their bodies need with how they live their lives. For me, being a single mom meant that, I had to budget when it came to healthy eating, and budget other aspects of it. And so I bring this to my practice. I went to a business seminar, and one of the leaders, Dr. John D. Martini, I consider him kind of a mentor. He's a chiropractor that has turned motivational speaker. And he said, ultimately, we're all in sales. We're all selling somebody on the idea of something, even in our relationships. We're selling our children on the ideas of certain kinds of behavior. So I guess ultimately, we're all in sales, although none of us want to think of ourselves in sales. But that's a huge part of, I think, again, any relationship. So with that, I really think that customer service is really important. So I developed this identity. I do comprehensive plans where I look at what I call the 3 pillars of health. So I break that down into diet and lifestyle as that first pillar. And also then I look at the microbiome or the gut and how that affects our entire well-being. And then functional genetics or nutrigenetics, looking at those genetic pieces that also will influence the gut, influence diet and lifestyle. So they all really actually integrate together. If you just look at diet, but somebody's gut is a little bit off, that doesn't always bring the optimization that somebody is looking for in their health. I'm doing this in one-on-one consultations primarily, really digging deep into somebody's goals and then looking at, strategically how that's going to fit based on what they're willing to do, based on what they need to do, based on then, of course, again, how it's going to fit their lives. I do lab work. I am doing primarily genetics and functional testing. And this is, again, I think one of the most valuable pieces of educational information. I think we really need to educate ourselves on what we can do for our own health. I love the educational consulting part of what I do. Ultimately, I see myself as an educator above all things because we're not short of information. We're short of how to process, integrate, apply that information. And having somebody that is able to kind of sort through it, falls back on my teaching because you always want to set your students up for success when you're a teacher, and you always want a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So that informs the way I practice, and I find that to be really valuable. I do also offer supplements. It was something I didn't want to do in the beginning of my practice. I just felt like it diluted the fact that what I was mostly presenting was information. But again, when I looked at the data, ran the numbers, and looked at that, I found that a lot of people really relied on me for product information. They didn't want to just go to the store and even ask somebody who was there. They wanted somebody with credibility who could help them really negotiate through those products. And so with the identity of, being affordable as something that I really, really promoted, actually carrying and stocking supplements became something that I ventured into and that I feel very passionately about. In doing this, I found that I had an identity to the individuals that come to me as clients, including even in public speaking. And so I have a demographic that I would say that I'm mostly attracted to, and that is women. And they come to me either on behalf of themselves or their children. So I'm working with women and children's health issues. Originally, I was marketing to my client, to new clients. When I was starting my business, developing my practice, I was very much about marketing to that new business. But, fortunately, I've been blessed to be in practice now for 12 years. And so I am now marketing more towards my client base. What can I do to help them continue to trust me as a place of information, as a place of filtering information, as a place of getting product and services and information that they can really, really trust. I continue to do public speaking, but of course now with COVID, those large groups are limited. So again, really relying on my ability to adapt and be resilient, I rolled right into a podcast. It's something I had been talking about doing all year, kind of watching where the trend was. So I was really ready to go with it, and am so excited with the different opportunities it lends me, especially in that conversational style of interview where I bring other experts into the conversation.
Always look to the possibilities. I love it. Your resilience, again, has taken you into creative thinking. and exploring what is possible. It's so important, the work that you're doing, and the key emphasis on education. You know, supplements alone, product purchases is so daunting, and we're exploding in the nutraceutical field. There's more and more, and they're going to keep coming. And so, how to choose something that's of quality, that's actually appropriate to the person that needs it, and for how long they need to take it, all of those things. So really, really well done. Well, let's take all of this and talk about the services that you offer. Let's get specific, and also if you can speak to the fees and other aspects of your business as well, we'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, there's really no template for what we do. As the potential and the opportunities are really limitless. There is not even one way of doing it. You know, there's other alternative practitioners in my area. We're all doing something completely different. And so, yeah, in carving my identity, I wanted to come up with some real strong professional core values. So the first thing was I really made a decision I wanted to be affordable. I did not feel comfortable at a price point that as a single mom I couldn't afford. You know, and there's other alternative practitioners here, and everybody's doing what fits and is right for them. And I think that that's fantastic, you know, not to negate anything that anybody else is doing. But for me, I really needed to be set a price point that was comfortable with what fit my own personal budget if I was to go see somebody along the lines of what I do. I wanted to present a real level of compassion that became really important. I think there's a lot of people that get intimidated. They have a lot of shame associated with the choices they're making. Yeah, I take my health history. I do a little bit of a food diary, and people are always apologizing and saying, well, that's not how I normally eat. And I say, well, that's okay. I really want to see your worst day anyway. So we can see what, you know, it's really looking like when you're challenged with food. So being compassionate, a lot of people leave that first appointment and they just have a huge sigh of relief. And again, I think it's finding those nuances as an educator that really helps my clients set themselves up for success. I use a lot of analogies. That's been very helpful in what I do. It's my personal passion to use those analogies to bring, you know, all this wealth of information into really tangible nuggets. You know, so I might tell somebody, hey, you know, with everything that you're going through, you might need to metaphorically run a half marathon. But if you've never done a 5K, we really have to train for the 5K before you can even do the 5K. And there's such a sense of relief that, you know, people were afraid to come in maybe, or afraid to see anybody like what I do, because they thought, oh my gosh, I thought you were going to take me off all these foods that I love. And, you know, and it really is about, if you can create some strategies where they feel successful, then are of their own volition willing to take that next step. I'm really amazed sometimes at people when they go, you know what, I'm ready to eliminate that food that I knew you wanted to tell me I needed to eliminate, but couldn't do it in the beginning. So I'm really big on customer service. I really feel so strongly that we have lost that person-to-person relationship. We've lost that integrity that comes with good business practices. You know, I tell people, look, I'm not just stocking with quality supplements. I'm using brands where I feel the business model in the brand represents an integrity that I'm proud to give them, support them financially. And I'm proud to say, hey, you can spend your money on this because this company has ethical and integral business practices. You know, and that's the kind of thing where a lot of people, they don't have the time to do that. But if they can trust that I'm doing that educational research behind the scenes and simplifying it into a language that they can understand, then, you know, then they're gonna always trust me, and we're gonna build a relationship.
Having confidence in a practitioner it's an acquired skill to be able to gain that, right? And you're bringing the right strategies to it. You know, the combination of kindness and compassion and empathy, putting yourself in their place, what would be affordable to them, and really to be able to support them through the amazing amount of information that is out there, and dial in what's specific to them. And I love it that you guide them to be able to come to their choices. I'm ready to give this up of their own volition, because they've gained some confidence in you and them, in themselves and the process as well. So beautiful. Well done with that.
Absolutely.
Laura, I also, I didn't mention in your bio, but you've been recognized by several prominent associations. You've gained a few board certifications. You've earned some really significant certifications, including a doctorate in traditional naturopathy. So would you speak to this a bit, what you feel the importance of these are, the value that you received from all this effort?
Absolutely. Being an educator, I am also passionate about being a lifelong learner, and I'm constantly looking at new ways to gain information. And I feel that, the more that we can say, hey, look, I am continuing my education, I am staying on top of the way that our field is growing. I mean, even though alternative medicine was the first way that we practiced medicine, going back to ancient times, it's really still considered in its infancy in terms of how it's been presented in mainstream. So we're actually finding new ways and scientific and clinical studies to say, hey, what we were doing maybe generations ago has a lot more validity to it. And I'm fascinated with the merging of ancient practices and the laws of nature with clinical studies and new scientific information, and how that all blends together. So, I think that the term functional practitioner can be a little intimidating. Not a lot of people understand what that is, or maybe
Right.
there's some confusion about what a nutritionist is and isn't. So, also getting, training in naturopathy, I think a lot more people know what the term naturopath is going to bring, or adding these extra certifications that say, hey, I pursued some testing on the knowledge so that I would be recognized. And that allows, again, I think, the individual who comes to me to have confidence. And it's a confidence booster as well. I think each time we advance ourselves professionally and personally, we grow in not just our knowledge base, but our own confidence. And it's a constantly changing field.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, one other piece here while we're on this, you were also a presenter at National Association of Nutrition Professionals annual conference. So do tell about that.
I love that experience. It just so happened that year, the conference was in Tucson, Arizona, which is where the University of Arizona is. It's where I spent a lot of my young adulthood. So I, had some friends. I could crash on a couch there. So it turned out. Yeah, absolutely. It turned out to be a really wonderful experience professionally and personally. But yeah, I had been working on, or I had just finished, I can't remember the timing of it, if I had just finished my master's, but I had used my thesis presentation as what I had decided to speak at the conference about. And it was really looking at, the way that we can help individuals to be compliant, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about core values and even how I identify as an educator and setting up students for success. Because the thing that I found from my master's in education and doing social learning theory and some of that educational psychology in that thesis, I found that when we approach our health, we weren't really any different And so there's biochemical individuality, which is hugely important. But then there's something that I call social and psychological individuality, which I learned about the way that we view food historically when I was doing my master's with Hawthorn. And so that all kind of integrated together when I did this presentation about, hey, as practitioners, we need to understand that, not everybody's going to be compliant, and why, and how that might change the way we approach an individual's care package, basically. So I love the experience. I can't wait to, attend another conference and hopefully maybe speak again when we're back to being in large groups again.
Right. They did a virtual conference this last year by necessity, and it was hugely successful. I mean, they really, I thought, pulled it together to still have that group camaraderie, great information and resources too. So I'll look to see you back on that stage sometime soon too. Well, genetics, I want to be able to have some time for you to talk about this because it's something that you're really passionate about. So tell us more about genetics and why you feel it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I really feel at the end of the day, this is the most important piece of educational information about our own health that we can acquire and then delve into. I don't know if this is how much this is being taught, but when I delved into it, I'd already finished my master's. It was very new in functional wellness and functional health. So it was really something that I had to do on my own to become really involved in and learn, that lifelong learner in me, that pursuit of knowledge, really meeting the demands of what was happening and shifting in alternative medicine. And so, it started with, the pediatrician asking me, do you know what MTHFR is, and help somebody with it? And just, get in and being able to do that. But as a result, it was a game changer for a lot of people. And it wasn't just MTHFR. I mean, that's the most common one that we all hear about and know about right now. But, I spent a lot of time really understanding and developing plans for people who have what's called COMT, is how it's slanged. But it really is that COMT V158M AA variant. And, that can change the way somebody responds to supplements, how sensitive they are to certain foods, the constant fight or flight response that's happening, and as a result, what can happen with anxiety and being prone to addiction or anything like that mutation can cause in their overall health and wellness, and even their approach to their overall health and wellness. So in really kind of studying this and piecing it all together, and then really feeling like I had become a specialty in the way that I presented a plan for these individuals, was, a real game changer for them. It was a game changer for me. And I find that the most significant piece of looking at genetics isn't just things like methylfolate, but really looking at mental health. How are these things going to impact the way we move through things like anxiety and depression? And when we look at those neurotransmitters, those receptors genetically, and look at whether those are on or off, it can be really powerful for people.
Absolutely. It's such a growing field, and you've brought up just some key pieces of it. So let's talk after about doing a webinar for us on genetics, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, mentoring. You've been in business for over 10 years now, and you find yourself mentoring other business women at this point, and as well as holistic professionals. So what are some of the key points that you typically share with these women?
Yeah, I love doing this. I mean, as I've shared with you now, I've had some real highs and lows, and I really feel like I can offer something, especially that I'm still standing after all of this and this many years. And, this is the only thing I do for a living, so I'm able to support myself. So I really key on an integrity. I really think that it's important to develop a mission statement that may or may not include your price point. But it's really important to understand what you're going to bring as an individual to your business. The biggest question or comment I hear from other women when I am mentoring them is, how do I deal with disappointments when a client doesn't get results, or how do I maintain the high that I'm getting when individuals do get results? And I tell them that neither one of those is the question. The question is for yourself to always detach yourself from the results. We can't get emotionally invested whether somebody does or doesn't do what they're supposed to do for their own health. You never know how many different practitioners, how many experiences somebody's going to need in order to make those changes. You just want to plant a seed. And ultimately, I tell people, I have the privilege of witnessing the body doing what it's supposed to do in the right environment. You know, the body will heal itself if given an environment that it really loves and can thrive in. And I just get to witness that. I just get to help people facilitate that in themselves. And so in doing, you know, kind of having that perspective, I think it's really important to have boundaries. I think as empathetic practitioners and compassionate practitioners, it's really easy to lose boundaries with ourselves and with our clients. And yeah, we have boundaries with, you know, the legalities of our profession, but I'm talking about, you know, like how to kind of maintain some lines that really help you be consistent in the way that you present yourself to each and every person. You know, it also helps you kind of deal with clients who might take advantage, and learning to kind of set boundaries. You learn how to be really respectful and still be that person of compassion, still help them with their health, but still kind of have really good business practices. I think it's really important that we walk our talk. I personally don't want to be somebody that is like, well, do what I say, not as I do. I'm looking to do that for my children as well as a parent. So maybe this is, you know, some of that, the way that I choose to be a parent. But I am in solidarity with my clients, and I am doing some of the strictest protocols that I ask other people to do. I will try on any protocol, especially in elimination diets, so that I can learn the ins and outs, so I can help people navigate through that really tangible ways through their lives. And then this also means that I'm helping people manage expectations for themselves. I'm managing expectations for myself. You know, we're in that immediate gratification culture, and we want solutions. We want to make that change. We want to give up gluten and feel the power of it now, you know, and so it really is about saying, hey, you know, this is going to take some time. We didn't get here overnight, but really articulating those expectations so people know, okay, you know, Laura expects me to feel 10% improvement within 4 weeks if I do these 3 things, you know, and really breaking it down into really tangible, manageable expectations. And then I think it's really important that we really keep our ego out of the equation. Admit when you don't know something. I think it's contaminated our medical professionals, where they're unwilling to say, I don't know. When you refer somebody to somebody else, you've still helped them solve their problem by turning them over to somebody that, you know, might have a different way of saying even maybe the same thing, but would be, you know, either hearing it over and over again, or would just be, again, a better fit.
Really beautiful process. I appreciate so much that you're applying so much to yourself to see what the experience is before you're asking or expecting it of something else. And it's one of the things that is so prominent about Hawthorn is, you know, here's your food, liquid, and activity form, fill it out.
Yes.
Because you're going to learn what that's like to have somebody else. So in every way like that is, here's the information, try it on, see what's, and then the way that you're planting seeds with your clients that raise their expectations of themselves and allow them to meet their goals, and really so beautifully described. Laura, I just have a couple other questions. With everything that you've done, I'm wondering if there's future goals and plans in the horizon for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to continue to expand on my podcast, bring in some more experts, different alternative doctors and practitioners. I'm also outlining and working on my next book, Whole and Healthy Parenting. So again, finding that the combination of being a parent, an educator, and a practitioner all together.
Great book, so needed. Well, if you could leave us with just one thought, what would it be?
Yeah, I love this quote by Tony Robbins. It's helped me more times than I can say, especially when sometimes I can get really either too driven or really down on myself. So yeah, if you're on your own journey trying to find your own way, just remember this: we usually overestimate what we think we can accomplish in 1 year, but we grossly underestimate what we can accomplish in a decade.
Right. I can take that to a day into a lifetime too.
Yes, yes.
Right. It's happening. So beautiful, Laura. Thank you so much. You've shared so much. I want people to be able to stay connected and find you if needed. So do you have a way of showing us how to reach you?
Absolutely. Here's my email address on the last slide here. My website is my name, laurakopec.com. Please check it out and reach out to me anytime. I love to help anybody with any type of question. Yeah, we're all on our own journey. We all do this.
Thank you. It's so generous, Laura. It's really been a pleasure. I certainly hope that you'll visit us again at Hawthorn and continue to share your good works with us. It's been beautiful, just beautiful. So inspiring. Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, now's a good time. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to help spread the word for our next All About Alumni. We'll meet back here again on Wednesday, October 6th at noon Pacific time. And we'll be talking with our next graduate from one of our unique training programs. All right, I'll remind you that we recorded this today. We've had so many fantastic Hawthorn graduate presentations, so I hope you'll explore those on our All About Alumni archived webinars on our website and view their presentations too. Until then, I hope that you really take the words of Laura in today and apply them because they're so powerful personally and professionally. So until we meet again, I want to wish you all the best of health and take good care. It sure matters so much now. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.